Hello, welcome back to Dat Dum Dasha. I am the Duke of Dasha, and today we are going to get into the Harry and Meghan interview with Oprah. I hope most of you caught it. It was a lot of bombshells thrown away in it. Most of you may realize that I'm speaking in a British accent today, and that's because I developed it by watching season 4 of The Crown, where most of you know a side effect is you may end up speaking like a member of the British royal family. And like a member of the British royal family, we need to get our thoughts and feelings out about this topic before they banish us out the kingdom, cut off our finances, and have us living by the seat of our pants in Tyler Perry's mansion. I got my notes. I hope y'all have yours. Let's get on into it. Okay, before we get into the actual meat of the interview, we need to take a second to talk about the fashions. Meghan was wearing a very, very nice black dress with this white detail on the collar. She had her hair up in a bun with 2 strands of hair on either side of her face, creating some really pretty moments when she would brush her hair out of her face. And answer a question, and they would do a close-up on her face. It was really, really pretty. Harry was wearing a suit, very, very nice suit, very well tailored. He looked great, like the British gentleman that he is. My only letdown from a fashion perspective was Oprah in the situation, and let me tell you why. Oprah, today was not the day to go into the back of your closet, pull out your purple Pepto-Bismol dress, pair it with some hiking boots and a collared shirt, and hike your ass down the street to do the damn interview. And then I had a thought in my head, well, maybe Oprah was like, this interview is not really about me. It's about Harry and Meghan. And yes, that's true, but you are the conduit for this interview to happen. And so if you didn't want to be distracting, girl, don't wear purple. But maybe it's just me. Maybe there are some people who like the Pepto-Bismol purple sweater dress with the hiking boots and the collared shirt. And if that's you, baby, then I hope you got your life. But for me, it was a little bit of a disappointment. In my opinion, she would have probably been better off wearing like a black pantsuit or something like that. But, this interview is not about Oprah. Let's not get too sidetracked. Meghan claims she didn't know much about the royals before joining. This interview created a lot of moments where I had to ask myself how I was going to approach talking about it, because I feel that Meghan might not have known the extent to the family that she was joining, but I do not feel like she was led like a deer or a cow to slaughter, I think that from an American perspective, Americans, we idolize celebrities. I'm not saying I do, I'm just saying in general, Americans idolize celebrities. The British royal family is sort of like, the holy grail of celebrity culture, if that makes sense. In Britain, they have the celebrities and they have the royals, so they have both of them. Our American versions of celebrities are sort of our versions of, trying to create a sort of British royal family, if that makes a sense. So I don't feel like Meghan was led like a cow to slaughter. I feel that she went in with both eyes open. Because, think of it, okay? This prince comes over from Britain, right? And sweeps you off your feet, creates this fairy tale scenario where, you leave your job, your family, everything that you've known, and you assimilate into his culture, right? And so Meghan didn't do anything that any one of us wouldn't do in the same scenario, right? Do I think that she went and she researched the British royal family and found all the protocols and what they do and researched Harry and his family and da-da-da-da? No. But I do feel that as Americans, we sort of have a rudimentary understanding of how the British royal system works and just the fanciful nature of it all, right? So I don't buy that she didn't know what she was getting into before she got into it. But I will say that I don't think she realized the extent of what it was, right? And she soon found out it was a little bit more, she bit off more than what she could chew. There was this notion of the family versus the firm versus the monarchy versus the institution. And I soon came to realize that monarchy, firm, and institution are all the same people. And it was really interesting just getting Meghan's take on the differences between the family and then the family business, which I think is a very good distinction to make. Because on one side, the family accepted Meghan, brought her in, welcomed her with open arms, wanted her to be a part of the family. But then you have the monarchy, the firm, the institution, and how all, we see it, the crown, right? That's always interested in keeping everything status quo. Like nothing is ever supposed to threaten the crown. So it was just really interesting seeing the differences between how the family treated her versus how the institution treated her. Racism in the headlines between her and Kate. This was very eye-opening, especially because I feel like when all of the fanfare with Meghan and Harry was going on, like I recognized it was a big deal, but I have my own stuff going on, okay? Like I can't be immersed in the British royal family and their goings on all the time, you know? And so just seeing, I think the most eye-opening thing for me was them talking about the avocado toast, right? And so when it was in the headlines about Kate eating avocado toast, it was phrased in a way that was, you know, she's being health conscious, she's doing what she needs to do for her baby and her, you know, her wellness and stuff like that. That same avocado toast, or just avocados in general, for Meghan was viewed as, you know, she's contributing to the water drought, she's partaking in eating something that's, you know, creating impoverished families. It just, the spin and the sort of dichotomy in reporting was just staggering in terms of how they covered Meghan versus how they covered Kate, and sort of pitting the two women against each other when it didn't necessarily need to be that way. Another bombshell that we found out was just surrounding Archie with the dark skin conversation and the no prince title. This was insane to me because if you think about it, Prince William and Prince Kate's kids, they're all princes and princesses, right? So it would stand to reason that William's brother Harry, when he had a child, that child would also be a prince or a princess, you know? So they sort of tiptoed around the issue a lot in terms of why Archie wasn't going to be given a prince title. And this was like prior to them even having conversations to leave the family. Like Archie wasn't going to be a prince. You know, Archie wasn't going to have the same protections, right? They danced around it a little bit. I was at home screaming at the TV, racism, okay? Like the most simple explanation is sometimes the proper one, you know? In reality, these people didn't know how that baby was going to turn out. Now, that should not affect his prince or princess title, because we came to find out later it was a prince. That shouldn't affect the titles or whatever. But what we have to say is, when you're assimilating into an institution that has already been there and established for hundreds of thousands of years, and let's just call a spade a spade. The British royal family is mostly white, right? And I don't think it's unfair to say it's 95 to 99% white. I don't know of any, you know, black or mixed or anything else that's in the British royal family. It's just always white. In the words of Cat Williams, white, 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 white. Remember that when he did like that little comedy special? Anywho, but that in itself is not inherently racist, right? That everyone's always been white. Actually, no. Now I'm saying that back. It might be a little bit, but. Listen, on the surface level, it wasn't inherently racist, right? That's how it's always been done. And I think that the royal family suffers from that whole title of how it's always been done. So when you have Archie, this unborn baby at this point, who threatens the look or the face of what the British royal family has always represented in terms of it always just being lily white, you can definitely see why they had their hesitation. And I'm not saying that it's right at all. I firmly believe it's insanely wrong that we even have these sort of conversations in 2021 about race and mixed race couples and stuff like that. But you have to think about it. These people over there, the British royal family, they've never had a mixed race couple. So this was the first time. And oftentimes when you're the first of a situation, you end up bearing the brunt of all of the negative energy that comes along with it, right? And so Meghan is an adult, you know, she knowingly went into this, but Archie is a child. And as such, you know, there shouldn't have been concerns over what he would look like and his skin tone and whether it was, you know, acceptable enough for him to be presented in that way, you know? It's just insane to me. The whole light skin versus dark skin, the dark skin fear. Listen, Meghan is pretty much Harry's skin complexion, right? So I don't even know what they were talking about in terms of dark skin, or and even if his skin was dark, if he inherited, say he inherited Meghan's recessive gene or whatever, because, you know, light skin, the pigment or whatever, clearly her dominant gene was more up on the lighter side, right? So even if the baby inherited the recessive gene and was more dark than Meghan or whatever, who cares, okay? The British royal family cares, and that's inherently the problem, right? Just the level of racism that's not spoken of, right, but is clearly demonstrated in the way that they act. Let's just keep going. Meghan contemplated suicide. This was another big bombshell. I swear this interview was just filled with so many different nuggets of things that you can understand, but it's just shocking to the mind, right? So Meghan was subjected to a lot of media scrutiny, right? I mean, Diana was too. And there's a lot of parallels, if you think about it, between Diana's life and between Meghan's life. But Meghan contemplated suicide just from the onslaught of media attention that she was receiving in a negative way, right? And that's understandable. I think that if we are all honest with ourselves, there are times where we've contemplated suicide. I know I have. Of course, clearly I've never gone through with it, but I definitely identify with Meghan when she was talking about how, in so many words, that she was the problem, and she felt that by removing herself, everything else would go, you know, back to plan. And I totally understand that. When I was dealing with my own identity issues in terms of accepting myself and just things just not going well in my own life, you know, I thought about it. I mean, it's always a thought that's in the back of your head. Whether or not you act on it is, you know, the determining factor. But feeling like you're alone, you're isolated, you're not able to move about on your own, you know, mindset, what you want to do. You don't have control over your life. Things are not going your way. You can feel that I'm the problem in this situation, and if I remove me, then everything gets fine for everyone else, right? But of course, if you think about it, it's kind of a selfish mindset. And what people don't realize is that the whole suicide aspect, it doesn't just happen to the person, right? Once you make that choice or that decision for yourself, it impacts everyone in your life as well. And so I feel like that's what always stops me in terms of just even letting those thoughts go to a point of where a plan is, you know, hatched or whatever. Because Meghan said, you know, you cannot leave me alone. I've thought about this. You know, I'm hatching a plan. It's in the back of my head. Do not leave me alone. And that's a horrible place to be. And if I'm going through that, or if I went through that, right, in my own little life, having it magnified on a world stage where every time you look in the news, you know, they're bashing you, they're saying this, that, and the third about you, you know, you're basically a social pariah in a sense. And you just feel like you just want out. This is not what you bargained for. And I could totally understand that. I'm glad that, you know, she felt the need and the transparency to be able to speak of it, because I feel more often than not, the people that mostly need help don't ever ask for it, right? But then that sort of brings us to our next point, where the institution, the monarchy, the firm wasn't interested in protecting Meghan, even though they recognized the problem. And this is the problem that I have in this situation, because it's hard enough to ask for help when you're going through that kind of stuff. Imagine being in a situation where you ask for help and someone tells you, I validate your feelings, I understand what you're going through, I would feel the exact same way, but there's no help that we can give you because of the optics of the situation. That is insane to me. Absolutely insane, right? Crying out for help and you can't get it. So what does Meghan do? She becomes very withdrawn. She does not leave. She does not go anywhere. But of course, we wouldn't know because of the media scrutiny and the media relationship. Her name's in the headlines all the time. So you think she's out and about, when in reality, she's in the cottage somewhere, you know, in a corner trying to get her life together. So she reaches out to Harry and is just basically telling him how, you know, her fears about herself and you know, her life, and that she just literally wants out. And this is what sort of sets the stage for the items that we're going to speak on next. So that pretty much takes up the first hour. Harry then enters and they announce that they're having a girl. So congratulations. I think it's a great listen. If you can get lucky enough to have a boy and then a girl right after the other, or a girl and then a boy, once you have, one of each, I think you're set, right? And to me, you would close up shop after that. So when Oprah was like, is this it? Are there any more? And they were like, no, I think that's enough. I think so too. Listen, we do not live in colonial days no more. All these people having 15, 16, 17, 7, 8, 9 children. I'm like, we do not need them to tend to the fields no more. Okay, like that. Listen, okay, let's be real here. People would have lots of children back in the day because you needed help wherever you were, the farm, the plantation, and we do not live in those days anymore. So I understand what Meghan was saying. 2 and done, boy and girl, we're good. Moving on. So Harry quickly just gets back into what they were talking about. And it's interesting to find out that he didn't know how the family, the firm, the monarchy would accept Meghan, but he didn't realize how much of a racial turn that it would take. And I can see that. I can understand that. Listen, Harry comes from a place where he's grown up with these people, but has always known that he was 50-11 in line for the throne to begin with, right? Okay. Then William started having kids, okay, and now you 50-12, 50-13, 50-14 in line for the throne. So Harry has approached his, princedom in the way that we all would, where I'm going to do me, right? I'm going to do things that make me happy, because living in the situation where I'm an ornament for the monarchy is not what I want to do. And hell, if any of you have checked out The Crown season 4, just the plight of the Queen's sister in relation to always feeling like she should have been number 1, but she was number 2. And she was just, in this ornamental position because she felt a duty to her situation, right? And don't get me wrong, Harry feels that same duty to his situation, but some mitigating circumstances happened that allowed him to get out. Oprah asked the all-encompassing question, why did you leave, right? And so their answer was a little bit shaky to me. Lack of support, lack of understanding. Meghan's talking about, she reached out to them for help. Please protect me. In the media, she had a belief that they, inherently were on her side and wanted good for her. Turns out that wasn't the case, right? It was also interesting that when Meghan was going through these sort of, suicide contemplations, Oprah had asked a question to Harry in terms of, did you try to get help for her? Did you try to do X, Y, Z? And so he tried to get help for her in his own way, but he even admittedly said, I was ashamed to admit that she needed help, right? Because he was raised in a situation and an institution where you just get over it. Yeah, we all have problems, but when those cameras come, okay, and, paparazzi is there and the world is watching, you are no longer you. You are an ornament of the monarchy, and as such, you need to do your job, which is smiling, kissing babies, and shaking hands, and pretending like everything is biscuits and gravy, when hell, Rome may be burning at your house or mentally in your mind. So, lack of support, lack of understanding, but I'm glad that Oprah held their feet to it and, kept them on task. Like, this interview is going to go around the world. You need to have a verifiable reason of why you left, okay? And honestly, I can understand why they left. Meghan was having those suicide conversations with herself. Her mental health wasn't good. She's being skewered in the media. Harry basically saw the fact that history may repeat itself from the horrible tragedy that happened to his mother, right? And so as a good husband and hell, as a good human being, he tried to do something where, let's step back from royal duties, right? Which I totally understood in that situation. Think about it. The British royal family is huge. There are members that are in the forefront in terms of being senior members, and there are members that are, ancillary, like they're over there. They still have their titles. They get their stipend. They do what they need to do, but you don't see them from day to day, right? And so all they were saying was, let's take a step back from our senior duties. We'll still be members of the royal family. We'll go to Canada so we can be in a commonwealth. So we're still, participating in the whole monarchy situation in terms of countries and whatnot. But let's just take a step back and take a breather from this insane media circus that has become our lives. And it seemed like, the British royal family was okay with it in a sense, but we soon came to realize that wasn't the case. In my opinion, Meghan said something very pivotal when she said everything sort of changed after they did that tour of Africa and she announced her pregnancy. And, I hate to keep going back to the Crown, but going back to the Crown where I think it was Diana and Charles who did the Australian tour, and she was upstaging him, and she had just this ability to unite the world around her and, get her causes to the forefront, and people really thought highly of her, right? And so the parallel is Meghan in that situation, to me, and why the smear campaign happened is because she was the modern day recreation of Diana's ability to unite people behind her and unite people behind causes, right? And her popularity in relation to the hierarchy of the monarchy, the firm, the institution, is why they had to institute smear campaigns in order to bring her down, right? Because she was a threat to the monarchy. And as we know, nothing is supposed to ever threaten the crown. Hell, if you let her, when she was still getting good press and stuff, she might have been the new face of the monarchy. And like I said, when you come into a situation where for hundreds of thousands of years, it's always been white, and now you have this one speck of color that is changing the narrative, people get threatened. Their power and their position and, their finances get threatened, and then they act very wrongly. And to me, that's sort of the seeds of where them leaving, or the contemplations of them leaving, originate. Going on, monarchy and the media. This one was a very interesting conversation as well. It was sort of reminiscent to me. Hell, I've talked about The Crown. I've talked about Harry Potter on this damn channel. It reminded me of Harry Potter in the sense of, the prophecy where it's like neither can live while the other survives. And that's sort of the symbiotic relationship the media and the monarchy has. When Meghan said that the media has their holiday parties at the damn castles and stuff that are run by the monarchy, I was like, okay, this is a tit for tat situation. We rub your back, you rub ours, we participate in what you want us to do, and we give you good press, we keep you in good public favor, right? And because of this, and they wanted certain aspects of the royal family to be forefront and certain aspects to be publicized, they let stories run about Meghan that weren't necessarily true. Hell, even that situation where, it was put in the media that Meghan had made Kate cry, when in reality, it was Kate who made Meghan cry. And there was just a systemic situation of not protecting Black women, right? And not protecting women in general who are sort of brought into these situations, with doe eyes, if that makes sense. And it just goes back to Meghan's inherent trust that this system was going to work out in her favor, when in reality, the crown had plans otherwise. Hell, I keep talking about the crown, Lord, the firm, monarchy, institution. Listen, the similarities between the show The Crown and the actual reality of the situation that's going on just makes me realize why Netflix would never issue that press release or that disclaimer in front of the episodes that this was, taken out of context, or that this is a dramatization of the actual royal family. It's insane to me. Let's talk about the golden cage of the monarchy. So like I said, where Harry grew up in this situation, he knew that he couldn't necessarily get out. This is just how it always was, right? Meghan's issues, right, which she rightfully went through as a member of this family, and that, that happened to her, it sort of served as the catalyst for showing Harry that there was a way to get out, okay? I feel, and this is my personal opinion, right? And they even went into this a little bit. Would you have left if it wasn't for Meghan? Absolutely not. There was no way for him to leave, right? And so Meghan clearly wanted out. And when I say out, I just mean out of the senior leadership roles and wanted to take a back seat to it, right? And Harry seems to have wanted out as well, right? You can't make someone do things that they don't want to do. So the fact that Meghan sort of served as this vessel for the departure to happen is interesting, but I don't think that Meghan went into it with this, grand scheming plan of I'm gonna, tootsie roll off to Britain, I'm gonna get this prince, and then, when I don't feel like doing this anymore, I'm gonna hightail it back to LA and I'm gonna do my thing. I don't feel that she was that calculated, right? I think that she bit off a little bit more than she could chew. And Harry had already wanted to leave anyway, so it just created the perfect storm or the perfect situation for that to happen. just getting out of the golden cage of the monarchy. I mean, quick story, and this is like completely unrelated, but my grandmother is from Guyana, right? And in Guyana, there's buses, there's a system, you can get around all the time. And so when she came to America and she came to, the DMV area where we reside, she would call our house a glorified prison, right? Because it's beautiful on the outside, right? But there's not the same level of freedom that she has at home, where she could go outside of her door and there's a bus stop. She can get on, she can go, and she can have her freedom, and she can come back, right? Here in the DMV area, you need a car, XYZ. So I sort of understood or I sort of had a personal reference for that the golden cage of the monarchy, the glorified prison of it all. And I don't know if you all caught when you become a member of this family, they take your passport, they take your keys, they take all your information. You're inherently trapped. You cannot go anywhere, right? And to the outside world, it looks amazing. But from the inside, if you're on the bad side of the monarchy, it can be pretty much a prison. So I understand why they wanted to take a step back. And so in this step back phase, they moved to Canada, right, to take a step back from their senior leadership roles. And the Crown decided to cut their security unexpectedly. And this is when I started to realize in the interview, because from the outside looking in, it seemed that this was all calculated. They had the whole Megxit, this is her plan and this, that, and the third. But what it really seemed to come down to is that they were put in a situation that they did not expect, and then they had to make the best decisions that they could at the time to survive, right? And so when your security is pulled and you're getting death threats, just as Harry himself, right? And then you have your wife who has your child who's also of mixed race, and she has a whole racial component of the whole thing. Harry just realized that he needed to protect his family, right? And so if they cut off the stipend and you have no money, you need to find a way to make money in order to protect your family, right? And so it was very eye-opening and a bit of foresight on parental planning when you leave money for your children, right? Because Harry said he was left high and dry, and the only way he was able to survive was because of the inheritance that his mother had left him, right? So Diana had the foresight to realize that, not only do I have this money and as my heir, you're supposed to inherit it, right? But I do believe that because of her unique experience within the family, she knew that one day this might be a conversation that might happen in Harry's life, and he needed to have the freedom to leave and not be sort of handcuffed to the golden cage of the monarchy where you need the money and you have no other way to survive on your own. So it's just very eye-opening to find out that even all of these years later, Diana is still in the mix, and she provided a way to help even though she's, been departed for several years. Also, they were able to lean on Tyler Perry and, the Oprah connection and all that other stuff in order to find a way to, get under a situation where they have security, they're being protected, they're in, a nice area, right? While they try to hatch plans for their lives. And what was really interesting is that it was sort of fly by the seat of your pants, if that makes sense, right? There was no plan. And I think that was the most shocking thing of it all for me. There was absolutely no plan. So, I mean, you think about it. You come from a place of affluence. You're thrown out. You have no money. You have a wife. You have a family. You need to make money. Yeah. I mean, if Netflix comes on and says, I'll give you a deal. If Spotify comes on and says, I'll give you a deal for you to do X, Y, Z. To the outside world, it may look strange and opportunistic. But internally, you're trying to survive for your family, right? And you don't have that, $88 billion worth of, British royal family money anymore to depend on. So you're going to have to work. In the words of Britney Spears, listen, you want a Lamborghini? You better work, bitch. And that's pretty much where they ended up. Like, you have to work to make the money, right? I just feel like it was a really good situation that they had the community around them, because though there may be a lot of Harry and Meghan detractors, there are also a lot of people who want them to succeed and want them to win. And so you see, when you have the Oprahs behind you and the Tyler Perrys behind you and the people in that realm that want you to survive and want this to be a happy ending for both of you, that things go your way. getting into the relationships with Harry and his family, Harry says that his relationship with the Queen is fine, but his relationship with his brother William and his father are a bit strained. Understandably so, right? The Queen is older, she loves her grandchildren. She's very motherly in a sense. And so I can understand why, they have a very unique bond and that one was able to weather this storm. Prince Charles has a whole bunch of parallels in terms of how the situation, coexists with Diana's situation and, putting your needs first versus the needs of the crown, the monarchy, the firm, the institution, and all those conversations therein, as well as Prince William, who's going to eventually be king, who is, already taking steps to protect the crown, right? So I can understand how those relationships in some ways would be strained. No regrets from Harry in terms of everything that's happened, but Meghan regrets trusting the system, which I think is pretty much very smart. I mean, like I said, I don't think she went into this whole situation with doe eyes and not knowing what was going to happen. But like I said, I don't think she knew the extent of what was going to come her way. So in that situation, she put her trust in a system that wasn't really worthy of her trust and didn't really have her best interest at heart, because her very being threatened their power, position, and I guess overall finance, if you think about it. Because I mean, people usually act in a certain way when their money, their power, or their position is threatened. And so Meghan must have been the representation of that to them. In terms of my outlook for them, I think that the skies are bright. Hell, they live down the street in Montecito from Oprah, which is in like Santa Barbara or whatever. They have the Tyler Perry connection. They have the Netflix and the Spotify deals. I think that they will be okay. And I think this interview went a very long way in terms of helping their public image and also letting them set the record straight on their own terms. So all in all, I think job well done in terms of the interview. And I'm rooting for Harry and Meghan, and I think that they'll be just fine. So if you guys happen to like what I said or anything, my comedy shtick, my British accent, please feel free to like, comment, and subscribe. Follow me on Instagram and stereo at DadDamnDasher. And until next time, my loves, I will talk to you later. Bye-bye.